Startup Grind virtual event. I think it's now our third or fourth, and an amazing experience because now we have 3 panelists. So let me just quickly walk you through our agenda for today. We're just kicking off, telling you a bit about Startup Grind, our team, what we do, and the mission behind it, how it got started. Then we also welcome Sebastian and Sandra from BMH Bräutigam and AWS to also want to say hi to the community. And then at like in 10 minutes roughly, we're kicking off our panel discussion. We try to make it as engaging as possible. So as you probably can see in the Q&A box down there. So just feel free to just dropping all your questions that you have. We will address them all after the panel at like roughly in an hour. Let's see how that goes. Also, yeah, feel free to use the chat. Just a little bit of housekeeping is just a summary of what I've already said. All participants are actually on mute once they join now. So as I just mentioned, please all of your questions just put them in the Q&A box. Also, I mean, it's still Corona time, and as much as we would love to come back and gather around all in Berlin and to see each other and to drink a beer together and to meet each other in person, I think it's still very valuable to come together virtually and have also like the chance to talk to Vlad and Tom, who are not in Berlin. So it's really cool. Yeah, if you want to tweet about the event, it's still, I think there will be some value bombs dropped here. Just use the hashtag StartupGrindBerlin. We're also recording this event, so we will upload it tomorrow on our YouTube channel. We're also live streaming now, so I'm very curious to see who's joining us online. But yeah, handing over to my better half.
Thank you, Mareike. And yeah, hey everyone, also very welcome from my side. Yeah, I would like to tell you a little bit more about Startup Grind, what is our vision, and who's actually behind the team, right? So first of all, what is Startup Grind actually all about? So for us, Startup Grind stands for its huge global network with people coming actually from more than 600 cities around the world. So for us, it stands for inspiring personalities like our 3 panelists today. So entrepreneurs who really want to make and drive a positive impact. But obviously, Startup Grind stands also for you, like our community, this time not only from Berlin, but actually from so many different places around the world, which is, I guess, an advantage of being virtual. And yeah, no matter, I mean, whether you're already an experienced entrepreneur or maybe just super excited about the startup scene, with Startup Grind, we want to give you a place to share your ideas, connect and learn from each other. And with that mission, Startup Grind was founded in 2010 in Silicon Valley and is actually today the biggest startup community in the world. So let's face it, who are actually the faces behind? So luckily, it's not only me, also not only Mareike, but we have actually a fantastic team who is helping us with all the event preparation. So a big thank you to Monika, to Eva, Chung, Marine, Martina, and Suresh for all your support. And yeah, if you're interested to get involved in Startup Grind yourself, please feel free to reach out to any of us. We are always happy to see our local, but obviously also our global chapters growing. And yeah, I mean, building such a great community is not only possible with an amazing team, but also with the help of amazing partners and sponsors. And at this point, we really want to say a big thank you to BMH Bräutigam. It's a Berlin-based law firm that advises founders and VC investors. And we are super excited to have them on our side. And yeah, happily you can see one of the lawyers, Sebastian, not only on the screen, but he's actually with us. So let's use this opportunity and talk to him. So Sebastian, I would like to you to stop my monologue and just that you can introduce yourself with BMH and also tell the audience maybe what is the best way to reach out to you after the event.
Hold on, you are on mute, Sebastian. Wait a minute.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks for the great intro, Elena. I think you said most of it. BMH is a Berlin-based law firm, and we advise investors and startups. So yeah, that's basically it. If you have any questions or want to reach out to me later on, in the chat room or whatever we have, go that way. You can write us an email anytime, and yeah, would be happy to work with one or the other of you guys in the future. And now looking forward to this hopefully very interesting event.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. And yeah, now quite exciting. We also have a new partner on board, which is Amazon Web Services. So yeah, it's our first event together. We are very happy to have you on our side and look forward to many evenings with you. So Sandra, great to have you here as well. Why don't you just take over and yeah, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, AWS, and also our partnership.
Yep, thank you for the nice intro. So it's a pleasure to be here. AWS is now partnering with you guys, giving not only activate credits for the startups and people who are joining, but also expertise on cloud. So I know that you will be communicating the offering via email later today, so I shouldn't give a lot of detail about that, but basically you will have the possibility to get credits and start experimenting with AWS as soon as you can, as soon as you want. You will have also the possibility of having some support in case you're having some issues with the platform, and you can have tons of possibilities to get ways to learn about AWS and to enable yourself to start building on AWS. So that's a bit about what we're giving. Please, I mean, I guess that the team will forward the offering soon, and then as Sebastian, I'm here to like answer any questions that you have for me or for the team. I've been with AWS for the past 2 years, so I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have for me, or to introduce you to people who would be able to support you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sandra. And yeah, now, last but not least, we are finally coming to our panel discussion, is the future of code, no code? And yeah, we have 3 amazing panelists with us, Vlad, Tom, and Michael. And yeah, Mareike, I hand over to you to get started.
Yeah, so I also stopped sharing the screen, so we still have a chance to see the lovely face. I'm not sure, I think is it in speaker view?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, as Verena said, I'm super pumped and super excited to have like these 3 amazing speakers with us. Guys, why don't we just start with a quick intro, tell the audience also about yourself, who you are a little bit, maybe also about your background and how you made your way into the whole no-code space. Vlad, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, hey everyone. It's great to be a part of this amazing event. Yeah, my name is Vlad. I'm a co-founder of Zeroqode. Zeroqode is a company that produces the suite of products and services all built without code and for no-code builders. The idea is that we are revolutionizing and making sure that more people are empowered to create their own products based on their own ideas and chasing their dreams, as high-end as this may sound. So yeah, and it feels great to be a part of this panel. It feels great to be discussing this topic with you guys, with this great community of Startup Grind, as well as with Tom and Michael. I'm hoping that we'll be able to drop some useful knowledge or at least some inspiration for people tuning in. So thank you.
Thank you. Tom, do you want to continue?
Sure. I'm Tom. I run the education team here at Makerpad. We basically teach people how to build and operate businesses without needing to code or be technical. I ended up here as a former project or product manager. Could never code myself. Actually did try going through a coding bootcamp, but was useless. So this whole thing has come at a good time. Yeah, and this ended up just being like a sweet spot for me. So it was like a natural progression and ideal opportunity to join Makerpad.
Cool, thank you. Michael?
Nice. Thank you very much for having me. So it's a great pleasure. To be honest, when you asked me to speak and to participate, I was really surprised because it's the first time that people in Germany actually care about no code. I think I always perceived it as something extremely boring, to be honest. So if you were talking about no code, it's like not something nice and shiny. It's something to build something nice and shiny. But since you build it with no code, it's like not as nice and shiny, I guess. So it was very surprising to see that you take that topic, you choose that. So kudos, very cool. I like to be part of this. I'm a lawyer by training, so started to do something really conservative, and I could have, probably worked with BMH Bräutigam at some time. So I picked a different path. I went with a firm that did international litigation in Frankfurt and in Paris, and I did that for a while. But then left in 2013, built a startup, sold a startup, and then in 2017 really thought about actually going back into the legal world, but bringing the experiences from the startup world and venture building with me, and actually go back into the legal market and build a automation company there. So at the time, we didn't think of no code as such a big label that you would actually, call your company like that. So it was still automation, process automation, and then we built Bryter in early 2018. So we're a no-code automation platform. So we help people that work a lot with rules and policies, like lawyers, tax consultants, data privacy experts, but also people in administration and HR, to automate repetitive reasoning. So if you're annoyed by the same questions over and over again, you can use Bryter and you turn this into an application that then automates part of that reasoning. But I'm sure we're going to talk about this later a lot. So really happy to join you here today.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for elaborating, but we will deep dive into all the three businesses and business models and what you offer. I think I speak also for Verena, like the both of us, since we're like super excited to have you and to deep dive into the whole no-code space. And then the fun fact is, we don't only run like Startup Grind together, but we also started our venture last year. And both of us, probably belong to the 99% of the people who don't code, who don't have a technical background and have no interest in learning how to code, but who are super passionate to learn about no-code solutions, and like also to understand how easy it has become to build something. And now our business runs super smooth, and we have lots of like templates and tools implemented, and it's just fascinating to see how things work and how we can utilize the power of no code. But maybe like just starting with the term itself, no code. Could you just, like, each of you, what is your spin of the terminology? Like, how would you describe it to someone? Because there are still people here in the audience. I think Vlad also mentioned, like, it's also about a bit inspiration, right? So also like opening the door to a whole new world, what is actually possible with no code. Yeah, feel free to kick it off.
Yeah, I guess let me try to take a first stab on that. Well, my take on this is actually pretty wide, because no code by itself is too wide of a term. It is becoming a very trendy keyword. Everyone is talking about no code this and no code that. But in reality, no code is actually not new. So everything that we do on our computers, gadgets, etc., without writing code is actually no code. So that is an unsexy way to define the term, but it's actually true. The no code, which is having all the buzz and the attention in probably the recent years, is the no code that is used to build things, build software, build automation, build services, and all that. But that's just one part of the no code that is taken off right now, and it's a great thing for everyone. But no code by itself is just, by definition, the set of tools, services, or otherwise, let's say, ways to get things done without necessarily writing code and getting all stressed out about semicolons and stuff. That's kind of what no code is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tom, Michael, anything to add?
Yeah, I can jump in. So I think with no code, it's just basically the latest abstraction layer that sits on top of all these incredibly amazing tools that let people build things that was previously reserved for people who could code. So this is just the latest layer that sits on top of it, which allows non-technical people to start building products. So I think it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. I think no code probably isn't the best word for it, but it's just the one that's stuck. So yeah, I think that's as simple as it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can totally sign that. They're both right. the truth is that obviously it's really hard to kind of draw a line, and especially if you want to describe your own company and your capabilities of a tool. Using the term no code, we sometimes add to it that for us, no code means that you don't have to be a coder. So, you know, it's software to build software, but you don't have to be a coder. So at some point, like there obviously is, if you line about no code, there are always some trolls commenting on it, like, yeah, you will always need code. Like as soon as this one project needs this one special thing, you obviously end up coding. And it's true that to be radical about it, to really never actually use a line of syntax, it's hard as possible, but then you're also limited, so you will end up coding at some point. But if you really like build something for people who can't code, then I think it's really no code, right? So if it's really people that don't have a coding syntax knowledge, and that's I think a good way to describe it. So yeah, I think we all agree. We won't discuss that.
Yeah. And before we jump into the specifics of no code and which players are there on the market, maybe you could elaborate a bit on how did you actually personally come across the whole topic of no code? How have you heard about it, and what is your link to the whole space?
So I'll get started as usual. I'm actually, well, I'm a telecommunications engineer by my education. So I tinkered a fair bit with, well, let's say the technical side of things. And I worked as a software engineer very early in my career. I was never a software developer full time, but I did work with databases, you know, developing applications, procedures, and all that fun stuff. But and then I transitioned more to technical project management, program management, and the deeper I got into that, the further I got from actually writing code. But it was always a passion. But the passion was not about actually writing code. The passion was about creating things, making them work in the way I want to, showing them to people, you know, and hopefully helping them as the result of the process. And there was all, you know, about the lucky coincidences or so, but absolutely randomly, I met my co-founder in one of the co-working spaces here in Chisinau. We're both not from this country. We're actually both from very far from here. We're both from Central Asia. My co-founder is from Kazakhstan. I'm from Uzbekistan. We're based in Moldova. This is like the randomest of things that could have happened. And we met at one and the same table, and he showed me the concept of a no-code tool, which we later on fell in love with completely. It was called Bubble, and we still build on that mostly every day. And he was showing me off that, you know, he created a few things here and there, and I was super skeptical in the beginning, coming from a technical background, and, you know, I was managing the 100 people global team building enterprise software for telecom operators, you know, like $20 million projects and all that. So what is this, you know, thing in your browser that you use to create something? I don't get it. It looks like, you know, you're having a little fun with that, but that's, you know, that's not serious, right? But the deeper I looked into this, the more I realized that it's quite serious. And my limited experience with no-code tools, or what's called right now no-code tools, were limited to Wix, Squarespace, and maybe a couple of others. And that's it. And that's how I kind of took a look at that initially. But the more I tinkered with it, the more I played with it, I understood that there's really no limitations, or they're only in your head. Very quickly, I actually left my big company, and I joined my co-founder with a super small startup that was doing exclusively no-code projects, products, and services. And that was almost 5 years ago. And today we're actually a team of almost 40 people globally, and we do hundreds of no-code projects. We, similar as Tom and Makerpad, we're doing educational videos and materials for people that are starting their no-code journey, and building products for people who are both just starting out and are also power users. So I can honestly say, after 5 years of no coding, that this is absolutely here to stay. And I'm super happy to be a part of those kind of events, because, you know, 5 years ago, when we were just getting started, you know, 80% of my time was about explaining to people that this is the real thing, that this is not a hoax, not a joke. I'm not trying to rip them off their money. And but nowadays, it's very much a different game. So people are coming to us and we are advising on them. We see that the attitude is completely different. They're very serious. There are big companies, like big corporations, by the way, including a few of small and big companies in Germany that we had a chance to work with, that are very serious about this. And there are a lot of circumstances that kind of support that, which we're going to be talking about. But yeah, that's kind of where I came from, how my journey still, this is the current stage of my journey. I'm sure that code is something that is definitely going to carry us forward and going to teach us all a thing or two about how to build stuff and how to empower people to do the same.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think my journey into no code was probably one of actually just trying to get things done myself. So I left school quite early at 16, and then always kind of got into the internet when you had to actually pay developers to build stuff. So creating like simple websites to sell stuff online was always like incredible to me, like 13, whatever, how many years ago. And then just watching the evolution over time during my time like in workplaces, I consider them like traditional like office jobs, and I was working as like the only semi like digital technical person within, say, like a recruitment business, for instance, or acting as like the product manager at a startup. I'd always look for what things could I do myself that didn't require like pulling on like any engineering or outside like development help. And this probably built out of a bit of like laziness as well, that I just want to, like, if I do something more than once, that's like annoying to me. I know like Michael's probably got a lot to say on this matter. So I would always be interested in like either like building like the landing page myself, or like connecting two tools together myself and making sure that like an email was like automated or reminders were triggered, etc. So as this kind of space developed and things like Zapier came along and this became an actual thing, it was almost a bit of like a moment of realization for me, which was like, oh, this thing like actually is a thing now. I thought I didn't have any skills in anything, or that I was like okay at like a wide range of things, but now it's actually got a name. So that's kind of how I just naturally grew into it slowly over time.
Thanks. I'll follow up. So I can't really have that. I don't think I recall a moment where people said this is no code and you're doing no code. I remember that the concept of giving people the ability to build software without having to be a coder. So we always call it an editor system. So it's like an editor. You can have an editor and build something. That's like the word we use. And that was like, it's an ROI topic, right? Because you go from customizing software to configuring software, and that's just so much faster. So that using an editor for things is just faster. So that's not even new. That's like an IT thing. So the editor, bringing an editor to an industry and then anticipating a need of an industry through like anticipating the coding needs and giving them an editor so it can be faster. That's just a very, let's say, cheap trick to build a company, right? It's a bit what we did. It's a bit like we said, like, yeah, all these people want the same kind of software. All they want is the same kind of reasoning workflows. They have the same problems, and the market is big enough. So let's just give them an editor to build that. And it can be an editor because their needs are so similar that you can cluster them together and kind of generalize them and put them together into a configurable dashboard, and then they can build this stuff. And then, yeah, you start thinking about what you call this. And I think, to be very honest, I think this is what's VC driven. I think it was investors driven, that suddenly you're surrounded by people that go, oh, no code is such a hot topic. And you're like, yeah, that's hot, right? We're doing that. But I don't really recall that moment where we said like, this is no code. It really just happened. Mm-hmm. And then, to be honest, it's funny. There's this meme of surfers on a wave that all fall down, And I recall that I think it was in late 2017 where it came up, it was like the meme was called VCs funding no-code startups in the Valley. And it was like there's like 50 surfers on the wave and all fall down and nobody really has a space to move. And that's the first time I saw like, oh, interesting. Yeah. So there's a hype, there's a bubble. Like apparently there are also people who see it like a bit negatively or skeptically. So yeah, that was the moment I knew there was something going on around the world, no code, right?
Mm-hmm. And especially like with regards maybe to Germany, because you correctly mentioned here it is still something new, right? So that's why you were so surprised. Is there like some positive surprise or like a surprise in general that you have observed in the market?
Do you mean from a German perspective or in general?
Please address both. I mean, but the German one is definitely also like the interesting one.
No, well, the thing is like, you know, hype, like buzzwords help, like buzzwords are a form of a lingo, and a lingo helps to kind of, to just facilitate the communication, right? You just know what you talk about if you use the word. And Germans only, for these things that are heavily technical also, and are coming from the developer community, they're not the first ones to pick up on it. So I just felt that once there was a word, then there was some interest, and then also the innovation or startup community would be like, oh, I find no code interesting. Yeah, it was interesting to see how fast it went, right? I think it was within 2 quarters, like it was like Q1 and 2 2018 that Germany went from or the venture space went from we don't know what that is to yeah, like so many no code startups all over the place. Like, interesting. So yeah, that was surprising. But yeah, I don't recall anything like from a German perspective, the big surprise. There's one thing, maybe there's one thing I want to mention is that I think never or not very often in humanity have so many companies emerged and grown so fast in one technology space, that were not growing just because of, let's say, external valuation or hype. Like, I mean, you had machine learning hype, you had obviously a .com bubble and that, but these companies were growing like turnover based, like they were funding on actual recurring revenue. And that was just super remarkable. Like you saw that in 2017, 16, 17 happening, where you see these massive funding rounds and so much going on. And that was just per se a big surprise. Everybody was kind of, rubbing their eyes being like, is that true? Like companies you had never seen before, like UiPath coming out of Romania, 10 people dev team in 2013, 14, suddenly 1 billion valuation, global presence, every bigger bank runs them. That was super surprising, like, and that just showed that at least low code was there to stay. I mean, they didn't even use the term no code at the time. It was more like, we are doing that configuration thing. You're having an own like script language that was visual. And that was just the first wave of really shocking the world with a new technology concept and showing that there are some big, let's say, economically relevant shockwaves that are founded on turnover.
Yeah, and talking a bit about the development, I mean, I graduated at a German technical university, and I can just tell you, I mean, I was told, you know, do informatics, do coding, this is the way to go, you will have a better job afterwards, this is a highly demanding skill, whatever. And I mean, a lot of my friends are still on that, Saturday nights spent on programming any kind of stuff. So how can it be that somehow at a university it's still this big topic? Or have you also approached to that? Why is it still not kind of a topic there? And I mean, I can just talk from the German perspective, but as you have said, it's still such a new thing. And I think if it has touched Germany, then maybe in the business sense, but not in the student kind of sense or at a younger age, because you're still kind of told the old concept. So how have you tackled that also to get more awareness into the whole society for this topic?
I'll take a first step on that if the gentlemen don't mind. Actually, I would challenge the definition of the question here, because you have yourself used interchangeably the word, okay, they told me to code, but then people are programming. And I think that these terms are, they have been, and very often they are exactly the same thing, but they actually aren't anymore. So what I mean by that is that coding is programming, but programming is no longer only coding. So what we're speaking about here is essentially both what Tom is doing with his tools and what he's educating people to do, what Michael is and his services letting people to do, and what we are doing in Zeroqode and Bubble. We're essentially letting people program their scripts, their products, services, etc. But that does not require coding, or at least it's not a mandatory part of the process. So to your question about why people are still learning outdated concepts, I would challenge that they are updated actually, because the concepts and the principles of how do you program stuff do not vary all that much between when you're coding things with code and when you're programming or creating things without code. You still have to have the efficient workflow. You still have to have the right UX or an optimized database or the right set of steps or right conditions, etc. It's the tools that are changing, the tools that are becoming more optimized and more efficient and much easier to get a handle of. But the process itself remains the same. You still have to program, you have to program well, and education in that area actually gives you superpowers when you actually get a hold of a no-code technology or two, and then you also understand programming, then you're basically unstoppable. And we see that every day on no-code Twitter. There are people coming both from no-code and code backgrounds, and they're rediscovering themselves as no-code makers, and they're making the best use of their technical expertise using the new tools, and they're getting there so much faster, and they're doing an immense amount of things in parallel that people are just being shocked at. So I don't think that system is hopeless. There may be a few new tools that have to be introduced to the curriculum, but I think that the good old principles of programming are still actual, maybe even more than ever.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think one term that is kind of thrown around is like visual development. So it is under the hood, it's still like exactly the same thing as if you're writing code. It's just packaged up in a way that non-technical folk can understand. So I think if you are like dragging a component onto a screen and say any number of builders, all you're really doing is like under the hood is actually creating that element and writing this, still compiling and writing source code. So it's just enabling more people to do that. So I think as far as like the education portion of it, and that's kind of a large focus of Makerpad, is we kind of need to show people what is possible with these new tools and to actually inspire people to actually even realize that this is an option, because I think in our own little bubble, we know it's still an option. And obviously Vlad's been plugging away at this for a long time, but still, it's still a tiny percentage of people that actually know that they can still build these incredible platforms, tools, like functionality, businesses, products without needing to write a single line of code. But also on the flip side of that, we're seeing incredible projects equally built by people who know how to code. They just hand off all of the boring, monotonous stuff to one of these platforms, and they get 80% of the way through in like record time. And then they spend their time augmenting custom functionality with writing scripts or adding in and augmenting with code. So I think it is so new that I don't think it's kind of settled on like the main sort of curriculum about where should you start, like where do you go next, like what tools are critical. And because there's new tools coming out all the time, they're kind of like jockeying for position, but we're obviously seeing some staple tools come out, whether that's like Webflow and Airtable and Zapier and a number of other ones. So in terms of like building a curriculum, this is something we're thinking a lot about, is like where should people start, what should you learn to get a good baseline, and then where should you go from there. So I think it's not quite at say like university level yet, but obviously that kind of lags behind usually. But I think equally you don't have to learn that at university. You could just pick up these tools and run with it, and you can figure it out as you go along. But yeah, I think it's a really good spot to be in, but we're still really early in terms of overall awareness.
Yeah, not much to add. The new thing about this in the educational space is that you can give this to people who would never have coded, and they're able to participate as well. So but it's true, like no code, low code enables coders as much as it enables no coder, like not developers, because coders can be fast, significantly faster. But for the first time, people that are not coders can participate, and that's super cool. You have this enablement element, because suddenly, like let's say some IT problems of how to build an architecture or something, they're actually interesting for people who are not coders as well. But since you take the syntax out and everything that you actually have to learn on a language level is out, so it's just about the problem, and you can understand that if you're a normal person that sees the problem and can visually program that. So that's super cool. That's very amazing. We have a course at 2 universities where people, lawyers and coders, are building tools together, and they're both using our software. They're also plugging in other stuff, but it's just cool. You see how they get empowered and how they connect, and that's very new, and that in that way hasn't happened before. So the interesting part will be like the second level. So what does that empower? Like, what do people build once the people who did not have the skills now get the skills? Because it's kind of, we see it almost as a skill set that people who have the domain expertise acquire really, really fast, right? So in a matter of hours, you're up to speed. And that's magical if you give people a skill set who didn't have that previously, and then boom, suddenly can express themselves in a digital way. That's very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we already heard like different parties now, like universities, lots of individuals, corporates as well. Could you maybe now like deep dive into each of your businesses, like Makerpad as a community, Zeroqode, and also Bryter, and just like what do you guys do? Make it as simple as easy, probably, because I want to learn as much as possible. I'm just thinking about all the people who have never heard about it. Like, also feel free to share some good visual examples, like what can I think about, what do you help companies or individuals with?
Right. So Zeroqode is, as I mentioned, a suite of no-code tools and services that are addressing exactly the needs of people who are embarking on their journey of building stuff without code. So we are actually doing a lot of things, too many things even sometimes. Some people might think. We are, first of all, we're producing no-code templates. That was one of the concepts that we have pushed through with our partner company, Bubble. And the idea behind this is that up until this point, and probably for a lot of people right now, when you're thinking about, okay, I need a website for something, a lot of people, probably majority of them, are thinking, okay, where can I find a template for something really close to my idea? And in a lot of cases, that is the WordPress template. 60% or 60 or 70% of the internet websites are running on WordPress and or WordPress templates. But there are, of course, other great examples of that technology. So you go ahead and pick a template, you change the name, you change the visuals, and off you go, running a brand new website for your idea. So we were thinking about the same concept for no-code applications, which would be much more sophisticated than just running a landing page or a portfolio page, meaning an Airbnb template or an Uber template or a Facebook-like template. So I'm sure that anyone has been around long enough in the startup community. Startup ideas usually sound like an Airbnb for, I don't know, gardeners, or Uber for, I don't know, online events, something like that. And this is exactly the need that we are addressing. So we are trying to create as much baseline or boilerplate ideas for people to start their businesses, their ideas, their applications from a solid baseline, so that they could focus only on something that is unique for their idea, and then get a head start, and then just focus on that differentiating factor. That's what the major part of our offering in our business. We're also doing education. We have a whole video educational platform that's called Zeroqode Lab, and that is meant for people of all levels of their, let's say, no-code skill set, for people just getting started, or for people who are tech savvy enough and need the answers for an exact problem or exact solution. We're also basing that off of concrete examples of building things. Like, our most popular course is the Airbnb course, which is a 16-hour video course that explains everything from day one or minute one, starting with a database and the UX and the payments and everything in between. Basically what you need to build a platform that is similar to Airbnb in its concept. And we do a lot of that. And last but not least, we're also offering no-code development services, meaning for people who want us to help with the heavy lifting, or they need some expert advice on the application that they have already built. They can work with us and our team of professional designers and developers that can take their idea to the next level, make it happen, or enhance it with some advanced features or do the integration, etc. And and of course, besides that, we are proficient at eating our own dog food. We are launching a lot of experimental projects, services all the time. We have web to native conversions. We have a lot of directory, which is the most popular type of product in no-code world, products, and a lot more. So we have to stop ourselves from time to time for launching too many products, because we're just in love with the simplicity of no-code. And our mission essentially is just to show to as much people as possible that no-code is the real thing, and you can build real stuff. People are getting funding, people are getting real money, people are earning enough for their lifestyle and more. And the biggest problem with no-code, and this is my personal take, is that people are just not yet aware of it. So if you haven't heard about something, then you kind of treat it as you start looking for a catch immediately, because it almost sounds too good to be true. That is the case with no-code. That is the case with Bubble. That is the case with, I'm sure, any products that the guys are also using and preaching about, because most of the people, as you mentioned, never heard about it, neither in Germany nor in the world. There's a significant percentage of people that is, getting to know no-code, getting to play with it, and then realizing that, yes, it does, do what it says it does. But our mission, as I'm sure Makerpad's mission and Michael's mission as well, as part of the Bryter, is to make that percentage greater, to show the world what we are capable of, and then do something great together. That's what Zeroqode is about.
Awesome, thanks.
Michael,
That's
do you want to
really cool.
go next? Is this a bit of a context switch, and then I can answer after you?
Yeah, yes, love to. Thanks, Tom. Bryter. So you want me to tell you about what Bryter does, right? Not the story of what we're doing. So really, like diving deep into the product. So the Bryter is a bit different than the other process automation or no-code tools, because we have a bit of an unfair angle, because we are using no-code for something that code actually can't do well, which is scenaric modeling. So code is good for if you have, let's say, a very short description of something really complex, and you don't want to manage it anymore. You want to write it once and it should run there, and you don't want to look at it anymore. But as soon as you have to change that often, as soon as you have to change your syntax, it's a bit annoying to rewrite that all the time. And as soon as the code, the way it looks, doesn't tell you what is in it, that gets annoying once you have to change it very often. So because of these two constraints, code is a great thing to write software, right? But for some type of software, that's not the best way. It's just a bit annoying, and this is where we come in. So it's a very technical angle. So I have to explain that. If you're working from home now in the COVID situation, you might have bought a lot of equipment for your home office. So you have a better microphone, you have speakers, better computer, stand-up desk, all of that stuff. So you ask your tax consultant if you can deduct that from your taxes by the end of the year, because you're basically working from home, right? So humanity is going to ask that. Like every tax consultant gets that question a lot currently. The funny thing is that if that tax consultant gets that question every day, like 20 times, and they want to automate that request, they have a problem, right? So the easiest way to automate that, to say like, okay, I get this question all the time. The easiest way to this is what they normally do, is they write a Word document and explain that. The problem is that every case is different. This is what I mean by scenario reasoning. This is why if you ask a tax consultant if you can get a refund for your home office, they're like, it depends. And you're like, it depends on what? Well, how big is your home office? What law applies? What's your company guideline? How often do you use it? What did you buy for it? What's your profession? Whatever. So it depends, right? And that depends, and that creates this, it depends logic creates a tree combined to a decision table, combined to a set of business rules. Then you need a formula to calculate it, etc. So these experts, they have a model in their head that they acquired through their studies and through textbooks. And if they tell you it depends, they're going through that model, right? So they use your information that you give them to actually process through that model. So if you tell them in the UK, they're like, okay, it's UK law that applies, so I have some other questions. So this is how they think. So that tax consultant, they can't really describe your problem in a Microsoft Word and then pin it on her website and be like, read it. So here's the solution, because every case is different. So what you're going to do then is you say, okay, I need to code that, and then you need a coder. So you need someone who develops that for you. And here's the problem, that's extremely expensive and annoying. And you really have to think of every case. And here code is really not great, because if you write it in syntax, the if-then logic of a decision tree in a code, it looks horrible. It's spaghetti code, it's endless, you can't manage it, it's really bad. So even traditionally, you would use decision tree structures to visualize that, and then you use other logic elements to build that. So long story short, that's a real example. So several of our customers, so one of them would be McDonald's, they get this question a lot. So, you know, tax people are annoyed because all the franchise partners would call them up and be like, can we deduct it from your home, from our taxes? And they're like, it depends. And then they take into question. So they say, okay, you need an app for that. And now you want to build that app, but it's COVID. So you're really under pressure. So you want to build this app fast. You don't want to take like budget in, request for funding, wait 3 months, pull in a team, gather everyone, have 3 workshops. You know, this needs to be go out of the door fast. So this is where no code comes in, because it's super fast, it's super easy, and this is what we do normally. So Bryter is a box that has everything you need to describe these reasoning workflows that you have here. So take in requirements, take in information from a company's house, but also be able to write a really sophisticated decisioning engine that tells you if the tax rule says that, with that exception, you need to change that. So you basically write the logic that the tax consultant needs to answer that question. You code it visually. And that's what Bryter is. So it's a real case. So McDonald's has an app that answers that question. So you just pull in your information and bam, it tells you yes or no. It was built in a couple of days. It was tested, live, ready. And that's what we do. So we are going into that big space of business experts that are kind of totally left out from digital transformation. So a company consists of 20% of the people who basically apply rules. So it's like from people telling you, can you go on holiday? And this is my request for going on holiday, to people who say, we have a database with 100,000 contracts that contain the word LIBOR. It's a current case where you have to, you know, the interbank exchange index is going to change. And we have 100,000 contracts with LIBOR, and we want to change them. LIBOR needs to get out, some other word needs to get in, and we need to write an addendum. That's all use cases of Bryter, and then they use our software to build that. So we're 90 people. We're based in Berlin, Frankfurt, and London. We actually just opened up New York this week. So we have a company in New York. My co-founder is moving in 2 weeks over. So we're having a dependency in the US. We're very lucky that we can work with companies that are upstream. So I think our smallest corporate is $1 billion turnover, and some of the law firms are smaller, but they're still rather big. So we're not quite in the space of, you know, opening up the toolbox so everybody can build with it. It's an enterprise-ready software, so it's a bit boring. I admit that, but it was kind of, we saw that this worked, so we were able to kind of bring it to market and sell it there, and then obviously we stayed there. Yeah, the big four are using it, many law firms are using it, banks. Yeah, so it was really at the right time, and with the right prerequisite and the right product. And it's a good time to be active, because currently, like, every company needs software for these kinds of projects, and you just can't code that fast. And just like the last explanation of that I want to give, because there was a question around that actually from someone. Sometimes people just use no code, not because it's faster, it's also because it's sometimes even more secure, because you actually have the building platform or the enterprise readiness as a service, and you build there, and then you know it runs because it's already secure. So it's even faster and and better than if you would basically code it yourself and then would have to deploy it on the company website, etc. So it's a bit of an enterprise-ready toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mean, just to follow up on that, like the question that Alberto posted, right? Regarding
exactly.
the cost issue.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's I'm sure we discussed that, but the big question is always because some of our customers are actually building software for their clients. So KPMG built some of the, if you had a loan request during COVID to get payment from your bank, some of these assessment workflows were built by KPMG and they were using our software. So you have the question like, where do you host? How does the software run? How secure is that stuff? So the cool thing for us is we have to build it once, but then it's available for everybody. So our security concept is available for all of the customers. While every customer in these cases had to build themselves an enterprise-ready base and secure SSO, etc. And that's coming out of the box. So sometimes it's just you could even call it like no code, enterprise no code, or out of the box enterprise no code. Yeah. So I always stop it and say we're really selling boring software to boring people doing boring things, because it's really the boring reasoning that they automate doing that. Yeah.
Does it make sense also to address the other question, maybe just from Alberto, regarding RPA, whether this is a buzzword in Germany, like robotic automation?
Robotic process automation. Yeah, it became a buzzword since UiPath was so incredibly successful. So just for who maybe not everybody knows what RPA is. So robotic process automation is basically a way to visually program macros. So if everybody knows what an Excel macro is, so you have a certain command line that you just repeat, and RPA allows you to program a macro, but not by actually writing code, but to basically draw on the front end, like on the UX of your application, to draw that. So if you have two tools, let's say your Outlook doesn't connect to that database because there's no API, you can basically manually copy paste something from one field to another, right? And then run that automatically. So it's almost like digital duct tape, right? It's really something that connects something in a very fast way. And it started in 2015, 16 to be really a thing, and then just grew really, really fast in 2017, 18. And many companies realized that that was a fast way to connect different pieces of software overnight, basically, without having to set up a team of programmers. And then the consultants like PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, they realized that they could add this to their consulting portfolio, like their service offering, and then they sold that into companies. So you had like thousands of consultants selling that piece of software across the world. So you can imagine how fast it went. It was incredible. And then obviously everybody was super curious, like what can RPA do? Like what are the limits? How powerful is that? And that it kind of created a hype, obviously, or it's a lot of interest. And so it's a form of process automation, if you want. It's not really